What would you do if you discovered that a restaurant you owned was being run by someone with deep prejudice against certain customers? In the quiet town of Maple Ridge, Bluebell Restaurant was a local favorite, bustling with regulars. But behind the scenes, the manager, Anita, harbored a dark secret: discrimination against customers based on their appearance. The real owner, Raymond Jackson, a successful entrepreneur, had always kept his identity hidden, secretly visiting his businesses undercover. One Friday afternoon, he walked in incognito and was shockingly refused service by Anita, simply because of how he looked. Little did she know, the man she had just turned away was the very person who could expose her and change everything. Bluebell Restaurant, located in the heart of Maple Ridge, was a beloved spot known for its cozy atmosphere, delicious meals, and welcoming vibe. Situated in a quiet suburban town, the restaurant was always bustling with a mix of regular customers, from busy professionals to families enjoying a weekend meal. With its warm decor, the smell of freshly baked bread filling the air, and sizzling steaks on the grill, Bluebell was more than just a restaurant. It was a community hub. But what most people didn't know was that this popular eatery was actually owned by Raymond Jackson, a successful Black entrepreneur. Raymond owned multiple businesses across the country, but he preferred to stay behind the scenes, far from the spotlight. He wasn't interested in the fame. Instead, he wanted to ensure his businesses operated smoothly and lived up to his standards. So he took a unique approach. Raymond regularly visited his establishments undercover, posing as a regular customer. This allowed him to observe how his employees treated people, how they managed operations, and how the atmosphere felt to outsiders. He wasn't just an owner. He was hands-on, always looking for ways to improve his businesses from the ground up. At Bluebell, the day-to-day operations were run by Anita, the restaurant manager. Anita gave the impression that she was in charge, running things with an iron fist. She was the one who greeted guests, managed the staff, and kept things moving in the right direction. To the outside world, she was the face of the restaurant, its leader. But little did anyone know, her attitude toward certain customers was about to change everything for her. As Raymond entered Bluebell that Friday, dressed in a plain black hoodie and jeans, his undercover mission was simple: to see how his restaurant was being run without the employees knowing he was the owner. What he didn't expect was to encounter a problem that would force him to take action. It was just another Friday afternoon when Raymond Jackson, dressed casually in a black hoodie, worn jeans and sneakers, walked into Bluebell Restaurant. He blended in with the lunchtime crowd, giving no indication that he was anything other than a regular customer. The restaurant was buzzing with activity, as usual, but Raymond had a specific purpose today. He wasn't there to enjoy a meal, but to see how things were running from the perspective of his customers. As he entered, he scanned the room, noting the empty tables scattered around. The restaurant was full of life, but there was clearly space for one more. Raymond approached the counter where Anita, the manager, was busy flipping through receipts. He greeted her with a friendly smile and asked, "Can I get a table for one?" His tone was casual, his request simple. But instead of a warm response, Anita looked him up and down, her expression hardening almost immediately. There was a noticeable pause before she replied, her voice cold. "We're full," she said, barely making eye contact. Raymond glanced around the room, seeing several empty tables in plain sight. "I see a few tables over there," he pointed out. Anita's eyes narrowed, her annoyance evident. "Those are reserved," she snapped, quickly turning her attention back to her receipts as if she had more important matters to focus on. Raymond's eyebrows furrowed slightly, confused by the dismissive tone. He refused to let it slide and calmly responded, "I don't mind waiting." But Anita wasn't having it. She looked up at him once more, her eyes now full of impatience. "You won't be seated today," she said flatly. You should try somewhere else." A wave of disbelief washed over Raymond. He stood there, momentarily stunned, trying to process what had just happened. He'd faced discrimination before, but this felt different. This wasn't just about being refused a table. It was something deeper, something more personal. He could feel the stares from other customers around him, some uncomfortable, others pretending not to notice. Raymond's gut told him that this wasn't just about him. This was about how Anita viewed people like him. It was clear her decision wasn't based on availability or practicality. It was rooted in prejudice. Raymond's next words were steady but firm. "Are you saying I can't eat here because of how I look?" Anita finally looked up at him, her face twisting in annoyance before she spat out, "People like you don't belong here. Go to one of those places downtown. Second-rate diners." The words stung, and in that moment, Raymond understood exactly what was happening. This wasn't just a bad day or a mistake. This was a clear reflection of Anita's views on race and who deserved respect. As Raymond turned and walked out of the restaurant, his mind raced. He knew he couldn't just let this slide. Not only had Anita disrespected him, but her behavior could have been affecting other customers. This was more than just a personal offense. It was a problem that needed addressing. As Raymond walked out of Bluebell Restaurant, his mind was in overdrive. The sting of Anita's words echoed in his ears, but it was more than just the insult that troubled him. It was the realization that this behavior could be happening to other customers too. The disrespect, the clear prejudice, it wasn't something Raymond was willing to let slide. He knew he had to address the issue, but he didn't want to reveal his identity just yet. If Anita knew she had just refused service to the owner of the restaurant, it could cloud the situation and make her defensive. No, Raymond needed to approach this with a calm, level-headed strategy. Back at his office, Raymond wasted no time. He picked up the phone and called his lawyer, Gregory Pratt, a sharp, no-nonsense attorney who had been advising him for years. Gregory was known for his ability to handle sensitive situations, and Raymond trusted him to help figure out the next steps. After explaining the incident, Raymond asked for his lawyer's guidance on how to handle the situation without immediately revealing his true identity. Gregory listened carefully, nodding along as Raymond laid out his thoughts. The lawyer suggested gathering evidence, talking to other staff members, and perhaps even looking into whether there had been any previous complaints about Anita's behavior. They agreed that exposing Anita's actions in a methodical way would be crucial. Next, Raymond called Marie Bennett, the head of human resources. Marie had been with him for years, and Raymond knew she was a trusted ally who could handle delicate matters with discretion. He briefed her on the situation, outlining his plans to investigate Anita's behavior without tipping her off about his involvement. Marie agreed to set up a meeting with Raymond the next day, so they could come up with a clear course of action. Together, they would review any complaints, check the staff's feedback, and determine the best way to proceed without disrupting the restaurant's operations or revealing that Raymond was, in fact, the owner. Raymond was determined to get to the bottom of this without rushing to judgment. He wanted to be thorough, making sure that Anita's actions were exposed for what they were. He knew that his business stood for inclusivity and fairness, and that's what he intended to defend. With a clear plan in place, Raymond felt a sense of resolve wash over him. This wouldn't be easy, but it was the right thing to do, and he wasn't about to back down. The next day, Raymond returned to Bluebell Restaurant, but this time, he wasn't dressed casually. Instead of his black hoodie and jeans, he wore a sharp suit and tie, his appearance immediately signaling authority and professionalism. As he stepped through the door, the atmosphere inside shifted. Heads turned, and the staff quickly adjusted their behavior. The warm smiles from the waitstaff were immediate, and there was no hesitation in greeting him. A waitress named Sandy, who hadn't been present during his previous visit, greeted him with a bright, genuine smile. "Good afternoon, sir. Table for one?" she asked, guiding him to a table without delay or resistance. Raymond nodded, but his eyes were still on the lookout for Anita. He knew this visit was different. He had a plan, and today, he would confront her. As he settled into the booth, Raymond could feel the unease in the air. From the corner of his eye, he saw Anita emerge from the back. The moment their eyes met, her expression shifted. She looked uncomfortable, almost as if she recognized him, but she couldn't quite place him. Raymond didn't give her a chance to figure it out. Once the meal was finished, he stood up, walked to the counter, and calmly asked, "Could I speak with the manager, please?" The request was polite but firm, and soon Anita emerged, trying to keep her composure. She greeted him with a strained smile, clearly attempting to mask her nervousness. "How can I help you?" she asked, her voice polite but laced with tension. Raymond didn't waste any time. "I think it's time we have a proper conversation," he said, his voice steady but filled with purpose. "About your behavior last Friday." Anita's face drained of color as the memory of their previous encounter flooded back. Her eyes widened, and for a moment, she looked as though she might try to deny it. But then, the truth hit her. This was the same man she had turned away just days earlier. The realization hit her hard, and panic flickered in her eyes. I didn't realize," Anita stammered, clearly searching for some excuse, but Raymond wasn't having it. He stepped closer to her, his voice now calm but resolute. "Let me make something clear to you, Anita," he said. "I own this restaurant. I've been coming here undercover to see how my staff treats customers. Apparently, you've been showing your true colors to the wrong person." The shock was evident on Anita's face as she tried to compose herself, but there was no escaping the truth. The other staff members, sensing something serious was happening, started to gather around. Raymond turned to them, his voice carrying across the room. "Bluebell Restaurant has always stood for fairness, respect, and inclusivity. What you did last Friday goes against everything this business is built on." Anita tried to speak, but Raymond held up a hand to stop her. "No more excuses. As of now, you're no longer the manager here." The room fell silent as Anita's expression shifted from disbelief to panic. Her hands trembled, and she opened her mouth to argue, but Raymond continued, "Pack your things and leave. We do not tolerate discrimination of any kind at Bluebell." He turned to Sandy, who had been quietly watching the exchange. "Sandy, you'll be the acting manager until we find a permanent replacement. Please make sure the paperwork is handled properly. Marie from HR will be here shortly to assist." The tension in the restaurant was thick, but there was a sense of relief in the air as Raymond made his decision clear. He wasn't just firing a manager, he was standing up for the values that Bluebell represented. The customers, who had been watching the scene unfold, began to clap, some offering words of encouragement. Raymond's decisive action had made a strong statement. This restaurant would always be a place where everyone, no matter their background, was treated with respect. Anita, still in shock, gathered her things, her head hung low as she left the restaurant without another word. Raymond watched her go, a sense of justice settling over him. As he walked toward the door, he turned to the remaining staff and customers, addressing them one last time. "I want to apologize to anyone who has experienced disrespect here. This place is meant to be welcoming to all, and we will be making sure that continues." With that, Raymond stepped out of the restaurant, confident that he had made the right choice. He had set a new standard for his business, and it was one that would be upheld, no matter what. After firing Anita, Raymond turned to the remaining staff and the customers who had witnessed the dramatic exchange. The room was thick with tension, but there was also a sense of anticipation. Raymond stepped forward, his voice clear and strong as he addressed everyone present. "I want to take a moment to apologize to all of you," he began, looking around at both his staff and the customers. "What happened here last week does not reflect the values of Bluebell Restaurant. We have always prided ourselves on being a place where everyone, no matter their background, is welcomed with respect. I will make sure that this remains the case moving forward. Discrimination of any kind will never be tolerated here, and we will do everything in our power to ensure this restaurant continues to be a safe and inclusive space for all. His words hung in the air, and the customers, who had been quietly observing the situation, began to nod in agreement. Some even clapped, offering Raymond words of support. It was clear they appreciated his decisiveness and commitment to fairness. The atmosphere shifted from tension to relief as the community rallied behind Raymond's stance. Turning to Sandy, the waitress who had treated him with kindness earlier, Raymond smiled. "Sandy, I've seen your professionalism and your dedication today, and I want to let you know that I'm appointing you as the acting manager of Bluebell Restaurant. You've shown the values we stand for, and I trust you to continue this tradition." Sandy's eyes widened with surprise, but she nodded, her expression filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Raymond. I won't let you down." The customers, who had been silently watching, erupted into applause, showing their support for both Raymond's leadership and Sandy's promotion. It was clear that they appreciated his commitment to creating a welcoming environment for all. For many, this moment was a reminder of the importance of standing up for what's right and holding people accountable for their actions. Raymond stood at the front of the restaurant, looking out at his team and the customers who were now offering their approval. "Thank you," he said, his voice sincere. "Together, we'll make sure Bluebell Restaurant remains a place where everyone belongs." As the applause continued, Raymond felt a sense of satisfaction. He had taken a difficult but necessary step, and now his restaurant could move forward with renewed purpose. The path ahead wouldn't be without challenges, but with his team and the support of the community, he knew they were on the right track. Raymond's actions weren't just about firing a manager. They were about standing up against discrimination and reaffirming the values of fairness and respect. In a world where prejudice still exists, it's crucial for us to take a stand, just as Raymond did, to ensure everyone feels welcome and valued. His decision sent a powerful message that intolerance has no place in any business or community. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. And let us know in the comments what you think about Raymond's decision. Do you think more people should take a stand like he did? We'd love to hear your thoughts.